Hey guys, welcome to BastianTime. I had a video that was sort of like a Q&A, well, more just A. There was no Q because I didn't actually ask you guys to ask me any questions, so I just gave you some random answers and then asked you to ask me questions, and so now you have, and I'm going to try to answer all of those questions as fast as I possibly can. So our first question comes from the Buddha Master, who says, so obviously you like Zelda and Nintendo, but what non-Nintendo franchises are you fond of? The first thing that comes to mind is Ys. I've done a few episodes in the Games Like Zelda series here on this channel about Ys. Ys is an action-adventure, sort of. It's also kind of RPG-ish. It's sort of like what would happen if you took old school Zelda, top-down overview Zelda, and added a bunch of RPG elements and made it a little more JRPG, a little more Japanesey. That's not a word. But so it's action RPG, but also kind of cutesy a little bit, but also has blood and guts, but it's still an overhead. And still to this day, they have never done like an Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword kind of thing. They've never tried to do like a 3D style of that. They always stick to the top-down, basically, and I love that. That's why I love that series so much, is because I really, really enjoy that style of gameplay. Some other franchises that I really like. Back in the day, I really liked the Spyro the Dragon games. When I was younger, and they were cute, and I just like collecting all of those gems and things. And then I really resisted Legend of Spyro, because that was obviously trying to be darker, and I just thought it was silly to try to make Spyro darker. But then I finally allowed myself to play the first one in that trilogy, and I was blown away by how good they were. They were a completely different style of game. It's kind of more like Spyro the Dragon is kind of like Mario, and Legend of Spyro is kind of more like Legend of Zelda, which kind of makes you wonder. I should do a Games Like Zelda video episode about Legend of Spyro, I think. But anyway, I also like old school Final Fantasy. Not really a fan of anything after Final Fantasy VI, except for 9, I really liked, and I'm really looking forward to Final Fantasy Dimensions, which is coming out for the iPhone and Android, and looks exactly like the style of Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, the Super Nintendo style Final Fantasies. I cannot wait for that. I love Secret of Mana and some of the Mana games. I love Okami and Okamiden. I love a ton of games. I could do a whole 30-minute video listing all of my favorite games, but I'll spare you. Our next question comes from XXProJonesyXX, who says, if you made Zelda, what would it be about, and who would be the villain, and where would it be in the timeline? So, I'm going to admit something, which is that I once attempted to make a Zelda fan game, and it wasn't that long ago, actually, but the plot of it was going to be the Wind Waker backstory, when no heroes showed up, and so they had to call upon the gods to flood Hyrule and all that stuff. So I came up with a fairly clever way of making that into a game, and but it didn't work out. If I did complete it, it would have been a really bad fan game, because I couldn't incorporate all of those classic Zelda-style mechanics into it, so I just stopped trying because there was no point. But maybe someday I'll try it again. I also, back in the day, created a fan game, a Zelda fan game, started to. In fact, I got like to 99% done with it, using this program called Zelda Classic, which just lets you create Zelda 1 style games that's slightly more advanced, but not much. And so what I did with that is kind of similar. I'm really fascinated by backstories, so I created a game about the adventure of Link backstory. So it basically involved Link having to seal away the Triforce of Courage and hide these, or collect the crystals from those palaces to seal the Great Palace and all that stuff. So I got super close to being done, but again, kind of like with that newer fan game, when I got close to being done, I realized it just was not good enough to really expect anybody else to want to play it. So I kind of stopped right before being done. But then, what I decided to do was take all of that and use that to create a remake of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, but in the style of Zelda 1. So it was like a top-down overview sort of thing, and I can't remember if I finished and released that or not. I feel like for some reason I didn't release that one either. I don't know why. So anyways, that's what I would do with Zelda games. I'd really focus on those backstories and develop them if I were to be put in charge of making Zelda titles. Our next question comes from WiiUMad24. I always enjoy saying that name. Who says, what's your favorite AVGN episode? And for those not in the know, AVGN stands for Angry Video Game Nerd. To be honest with you, I've only seen one or two, so I guess my favorite episode is the one about Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, just because I could relate to so much that he said in that. And so, yeah. I really should watch more of those. They're really good. I don't know why I haven't. Our next question comes from Rebel Junk, who says, has there been a game that when you played as a kid you were bad at it, but when you were older you were great at? No. The weirdest thing is, I feel like all the games that I was super good at when I was a kid, I'm now awful at. Like, I've recently tried to replay some of the older Mario games, and I was so much more skilled when I was a kid. And Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, I finished that when I was a kid. I recently tried to replay it, and I was struggling, and I got all the way to the Great Palace, and I thought, okay, fine, I will get my way through this thing, and I got to Link's Shadow, and I just couldn't beat Link's Shadow anymore, and so I gave up, which is really sad, but yeah, so no. I guess the answer is the exact opposite of what you were suggesting, which is as I've gotten older, I'm worse at games that I used to be good at. Next question comes from Ironman316, who says, how old are you? Where are you from? What's your real name, since it's not Bastian? So our next question is, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not going to answer what my name is, but I guess I can talk about where I'm from, which is Portland, Oregon, and if you have seen the show Portlandia, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's a stereotyped version of Portland, but it's kind of accurate. A lot of people ride their bikes, and this is not just kids riding their bikes. These are adults who will bike from a suburb all the way into downtown to go to work, and this is not unusual. Tons and tons of people do this, and so they get to work and they change out of their bike clothes and into their business suits and do their presentations on how to increase profit margins. But you know, it's very everybody here seems to be really interested in helping out the planet, and I like that a lot. Our next question comes from the Grants1425, who says, what would you rather to see I remake of the 3DS, Link to the Past or Majora's Mask? I feel like there are so many options for a Link to the Past remake. First of all, what you could do is simply take the regular 16-bit version, but create a 3D Classics, as they're calling it in Nintendo, where they just create those extra dimension layers, because you know a lot of places in the Link to the Past dungeons and overworld have an upper level and then a lower level. So I mean, and then even in that upper level, then there are things even a little higher, like the tops of trees or things. So you could really create a really interesting, like you're looking down through all of these different layers, just using the regular old 16-bit graphics that they already have. So that would be really cool. Or it would be really nice to see like a super HD version of those sprites. So like it would look like maybe it's painted with watercolors or something like that, but still the same basic style. Or what would be really awesome to see is it done in like a 3D style, like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, blah 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 blah. Where and then like the art style for that, what would be so awesome to me, and I think they could finally pull this off with the Wii U's power, is to just take that original instruction booklet, instruction manual art style to look like an anime sort of thing, but figure out a way to maybe not do like a Paper Mario kind of thing where it's flat, but still somehow make it look like it's a moving cartoon, constantly in 3D space. I can't really describe it very well, but I think that would be so beautiful and awesome, and I'd love to play that. So I don't care what they do, I just really like Link to the Past remake because I think it's my favorite Zelda game. And that's all the questions that were asked at the time I recorded this. I'm sure a lot of you will ask more questions after I've recorded this, in which case I'll cover those in the next episode. So see you then, guys. Bye. Or maybe it's that I have an embarrassingly awful real name and I just don't want you guys to know it. Like, Flatulous M. Stinky Son.